Well, Congressman Thomas Massie is proposing legislation which would cut Dr. Anthony Fauci's pay to zero until he is replaced as the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases. One America's John Hines has that report.
You are a sponsor of legislation to cut the salary of the director of the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases, better known as Dr. Fauci. I guess cut this to zero until he resigns. Dr. Fauci's salary is actually $417,608 a year, which I don't think many people realize that. That apparently, I believe, as I understand, is he's the highest paid employee in the federal government, even paid higher than the president. Is that correct?
Yes, he is. He's the highest paid employee in the federal government. He's been around forever. And he has disqualified himself from the position that he serves in. But there's two questions that Fauci would not answer when Tom McClintock and I spoke with him on a conference call a year ago. We had a conference call with several GOP members.
Were you wearing two masks, sir?
Well, at the time, Fauci was saying that masks didn't work, ironically, back at that point. But our questions, McClintock's question was a really good one. He said, okay, I understand this is a dangerous virus, but what are the health effects? What are the comorbidities associated with poverty? Like when people lose their jobs and their houses and, you know, their livelihoods, they're going to be poorer. And there's a whole rash of health effects that come from that. And Dr. Fauci said, well, you're kind of right, but we're not really considering that. We're not worried about that. We're not thinking about that. That's his answer today. A year later, he doesn't care. He's got a single focus on this virus and doesn't care if people aren't getting cancer screenings, if people are having their feet amputated because they didn't go see the doctor for their diabetes condition. That is a disqualifier for him. And the other thing that I asked him back when they said just 2 weeks to, slow the spread, I said, okay, you want to shut everything down. What are the conditions under which you will open things back up? Like, what is the specification? How close to herd immunity do we have to be? And he said, well, we really haven't thought about that yet. And here we are a year later, and he still doesn't know under what conditions he would advocate for a full opening of the government. So he has disqualified himself from his position. He needs fired.
You have been, of course, as you say, a frequent critic of Dr. Fauci, and have suggested that he's been lying about the efficacy of the vaccine, especially for those who have already been infected. Talk about that a little bit, if you can.
Yeah, sure. And in particular, that's the CDC who has been spreading misinformation knowingly. So that makes it a lie if they knowingly do it. I talked to the director of the CDC in Washington, D.C. I recorded the phone call. She said I was correct. She got their top expert who said I was correct. They said they would change their website. A month later, they had not. I pressed them on it, and they changed it to something even more ambiguous. And I want to be very specific. I'm not saying that the vaccine does not work. It probably works, and if you're old and haven't had COVID, it's probably a good thing. If you're young and you've already had COVID, there is no evidence to show that you should get the vaccine. In fact, the Pfizer trial data and the Moderna trial data, which are the biggest, samples that we have, showed no benefit of the vaccine to those who had already been infected and recovered. And so that's 100 million people right there that there's no data to say they need to get the vaccine. But the reason the CDC is lying about this is they assume you're too stupid to know whether you had COVID or not. And so they're worried that people who haven't had COVID had a cold or the flu or strep throat and think they had COVID, and so they won't get the vaccine. So their solution to that is to treat everybody as stupid, and in their heart of hearts, they believe they're patriots when they lie to you about these things.
Congressman Thomas Massie of Kentucky, thank you so much for talking to us on One America News, sir. It's great to catch up with you from, I guess, the farm. Is that the farm?
We're at the farm here in Kentucky. I'll be at Fort Pelosi. I'll see you there next week.
Very good. Congressman Massie, good to talk to you.